Recall.
All righty. Well, welcome everybody to AIIC Group's Regional Center and NCE's Visa Bulletin update and webinar surrounding EB-5. I thank you all for joining here today. We have some very special guests. As always, Wright Goforth Capital, Kevin Wright, and Aaron Goforth. Thank you for joining us. Um, and special guests, Philip Cuck from WR Immigration, one of the leading attorney firms, law firms in the country and globally for EB-5. So quite a bit of exciting news and updates to share today, as I'm sure everybody has been excited about learning about the Visa Bulletin. But before we begin, I'm just going to have a few minutes just to kind of talk about AIIC Group and what we do as the regional centers and the NCE. We are at AIIC, we focus on EB-5 investments engineered for security. We're known for ultra conservative, safe projects. Um, you know, uh, Number one, get how to get your green card. Number two, how to get your hard-earned money back. Very risk-aware, compliance-driven, and investor-focused. We are a mid-tier, mid-sized firm. Have helped over 1,600 families from India, from China, from Vietnam, from Brazil, from Mexico, all over the globe, get their green cards. And we take pride in those 1,600 families. All of those, this is pre-RIA as well as post-RIA projects, but for pre-RIA, all eligible investors' capital has been fully repaid in AIIC Group projects. So this is we have over 21 successful projects, two current active projects ongoing, which are I-956F approved, and one with its first I-526E approval recently. So we've also created over 230 regional centers. So we've been around the block for quite some time, let's say. Today, we have from Wright Goforth Capital, representing Wright Goforth, Kevin Wright, world famous economist, been doing EB-5 his entire career and, responsible for over 200 regional centers, doing the business plans and documentation for EB-5 structures and feasibility studies and economic analysis, not only for our projects at AIIC Group, but some of the major regional center names out there that I'm sure you guys are aware of. So thank you, Kevin, for joining us here today.
Thank you.
And then his partner, Aaron Goforth, who's former chairman of Wright Johnson Capital, one of the largest EB-5 consulting firms out there. Was a partner at Baker Tilly, also involved in extensive experience raising over $2 billion for commercial real estate projects. And again, providing strategic business consulting and monitoring, and also part of the whole economic analysis and business plans for EB-5 projects out there. Myself, I'm the president and CEO of the AVG Group and a managing partner at AIIC Group. I'm also the chairman of the Republican Hindu Coalition, which serves over 100,000 Indian Americans, consisting of business owners, doctors, IT professional leaders, and great minds from all over the 50 states of the United States. And now we have a special guest and a very important guest today, especially as the new Visa Bulletin has come out. Philip Cuck, first of all, thank you for joining us here today. I know it's, you're super backed up and you're filing those lots and lots of petitions out there and are probably getting thousands of emails. So I appreciate you taking an hour here out of your day to help us and educate users out there. Um,
Happy to be here.
Thank you. WR Immigration is a global practice, having 35 years experience in immigration law. representing parties from all different sides of the EB-5 process, from, the regional centers to the development of projects to investors themselves. Uh, Focused on strategic legal services, predictive technology solutions, and then they're very inclusive and collaborative with the investors and trying to strategically figure out what's the best solution. So when you have complex source of funds type of situations, they're a great party to go to. Philip himself has been in the industry for quite some time as an immigration attorney, and specializing particularly in EB-5 matters. He's a proud winner of Utah's Mickey Duncan Award by the ACLU, which is not only for EB-5 but protecting immigrants' rights in federal court. So both in supporting EB-5 applications, but also fighting for immigrant rights and matters that are dear to him. And then, of course, Phil and the WR immigration team works very closely with Charles Oppenheim, who former director of Visa Consulting, he is the director of Visa Consulting at WR Immigration, and former chief of the Immigrant Visa Control at United States Department of State. So thank you all for, of course, joining us here today. And we're going to lead off with a bunch of questions. If at any point anyone has any questions, there is a question and answer bulletin down there. They can ask them. And as we progress, we can get those covered as well. Many of you have put in questions ahead of time, and that's where some of the key topics are going to be talked about today. So having said that, I'll begin with the questions, put down my screen, and we can go from there. So thank you again, panelists, for joining us here today. Phil, today's a super exciting day. A lot of new information that has come out. People are obviously very excited. So why don't you just tell us a little about, what do we need to know about what happened in today's Visa Bulletin?
Yeah, so everyone is in luck because USCIS was postponing just for this presentation to make it a super surprise for us to give us the visa bulletin. We checked this morning, super pleased with what we have here. It looks like for the EB-5 category, all of the categories, apart from the unreserved for India and China, are current, and they are remaining current up until January. So it'll be interesting to see what happens beyond then. There's still definitely the risk of retrogression beyond then. Um, Charlie has it's really great to work with him because I can just kind of rely on him for this kind of stuff and what he sees. But he was right about this one and thinking that it would remain current, and we'll have to see what happens in the coming days. But it's a good thing, and it's allowing for more applications to be filed in the EB-5 category, particularly for those nationals from China and India, who'll be able to backlog or bypass the backlogs in the EB-1, EB-2, EB-3 categories.
Great, great. So we're completely current. We don't have to worry about retrogression as of yet. So that's great news, of course. Let's talk a little bit about the timeline and process. We have a lot of questions around source of funds, but first I kind of want to touch base on kind of the process and how retrogression, hypothetically, if it were to happen, how would it go about? So there's a lot of chatter about number one, if funds were to sit in NCE, so that is the new commercial enterprise, and gets delayed upon the draw request to the JCE. So that is, it's a brand new construction project, and the USCIS it's taking time. So the funds are sitting in investor funds in the NCE, but funds have not gone to the JCE. And the USCIS is evaluating an investor's I-526C, whether they've been deployed yet or not. So, can it still get approved? That's one big question out there. Can your 526C still get approved if your funds are sitting in the NCE and not deployed to the JCE? That's the first question. Phil?
Yeah, yeah. USCIS, first thing they do is they adjudicate the I-956F from the regional center, right? And the I-526E gets approved based on the I-956F. Okay. Once the I-956F is approved, it's binding on the project side facts of the I-526E. So if the 956F business plan says a fund is going to be deployed to the job creating entity via draw requests, USCIS has already vetted that and accepted that mechanism for approval. Okay. So at the I-526E stage for you, for the investor, the requirement is that the funds must be at risk and that they're committed to the new commercial enterprise. USCIS does not require that the full capital be invested to have been spent by the job creating entity or even fully drawn from the new commercial enterprise at the time of the approval on the I-526E. So you need to prove that the funds are available to the job creating entity. But as long as the NCE has a binding obligation to fund the job creating entity, the at risk requirement is generally satisfied for the adjudication of the I-526C. The actual deployment of the funds matters at the I-829 stage, which I'm sure we'll get to talking a lot about that. And to remove conditions under the I-829, the investor has to prove then that the jobs were created when the job creating entity spends the money. If the funds stay in the NC and are never drawn and no jobs are creating, then you have a problem.
Right, right, right. So basically, what you're saying then is the USCIS really doesn't look at when the funds go from the NCE to the JCE until they're, the I-829 stage. Is that
Right.
correct? And like, which is typically about, 21 to 24 months post I-526E approval.
The clock varies, but that's right. They really care at the I-829 stage.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So, investors worry about, hey, when is the draw request going to come out? As long as, I mean, fundamentally, there's, a 2-year sustainment period where your money's got to be at risk. And that at risk could be in the NCE, until, I mean, obviously it gets deployed to the JCE at some point, but really the USCIS evaluates it at the 829 stage.
That's right.
Okay. So let's do another hypothetical situation here, just because a lot of investors have asked about this. So let's just say, hypothetically, we have a project that claims that they can pay back in 2 years. It takes 4 to 6 months, let's say, on average, or, right now, the processing time for a rural category project to get the I-526E approval. Then about 20 to 1 to 24 months, let's just say on average, to apply for your I-829. So at the time of the 829, even though the funds that have already been returned, let's say because the funds got returned in 2 years, but the sustainment period, so in this case, the sustainment period has been fulfilled. Um, is there any issue of because the money is not, deployed still with the removal of a conditional green card?
No, no, yeah. So it just matters that it has been deployed, right? So in your hypothetical, year zero, I invest the $800,000. Money goes to the JCE. At year zero point 0.5, because you've invested in this rural project that has great turnaround, USCIS is excited about it, really wants to approve it. They approve it in 5 months, right? And by year two, so you were at year zero when you invested. By year two,
Yep.
your sustainment period has ended. Your jobs are created, the project repays you. That's pretty optimistic for a project. And if you find a project that does that, awesome. But they'd say they repay you at the 2 year mark. And around the 2.5 year mark, let's say you receive your conditional green card. And then so when you get the conditional green card, then that clock starts, that 2 year clock, and you can file 90 up to 90 days before that 2 year clock. And then you get the I-829. But yeah, that's exactly right. You're
That
hypothetical.
you're saying. Okay. Here's another hypothetical situation from a processing time. Now, since we've been talking about the Visa Bulletin and fortunately retrogression has not hit yet for the Indians or Chinese, and it's all current. But if you're concurrently filing, and let's say it just hypothetically takes about 4 to 6 months, again in a rural project, let's say, uh, to get your 526C approval, but your 485 is not yet approved, but retrogression hits in between. What happens?
Great question. Yeah. So if you have filed concurrently the I-526E with the I-485, retrogression is a delay. It's not a denial. Okay. So you effectively, if you're in the United States on the I-485 with with the employment authorization document, the advanced parole and everything, that you get to stay in the United States. They're not going to kick you out once you've been retrogressed. It's just that you're going to have to wait longer for the actual green card to arrive.
Got it. So you're still work authorization, your employment. I mean, all of
The
your
travel
status,
permit.
the travel
Yeah,
permit, that all stays, in place. You just don't get your conditional green card at that time.
yeah, that's right.
Okay. What if now retrogression hits and you have your priority date set and your 526 is pending though? So you've just invested, and all of a sudden retrogression hits. What happens then?
Well, USCIS won't adjudicate it, right? And so if they don't adjudicate the I-526C, they won't even get to the I-485. Yeah, it's a little bit of a different situation there.
Okay. So then it just gets basically delayed for your 526C approval as well then, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. But because you filed concurrently, you still can, even though that's pending, you can still resume all the rights of, being in the United States.
Right.
Okay, great. Um, all right. What will happen to existing EB2 or EB3 cases once an investor gets their EB-5 conditional green card? So at this stage, you have your permanent residency, you have your conditional PR. What happens to your H-1B? What happens to your EB-2 or EB-3 case?
Well, the H-1B will be gone. But for the EB2, EB3, your I-140 never really dies, right? EB2 and EB3 and EB5s, they're taken from different pools. You're not with the EB5, you're not taking any numbers from the EB1, EB2, EB3 pool. So if you were to say, at the IA29 stage, you did not somehow, we're not able to get your conditions removed. And you would still be ultimately able to quote unquote fall back on that other I-140, though, you're not going to be able to just use that to stay in the country, right? You have to make sure that there's no backlog, that your visa date is current on the EB2, EB3s, but it's not gone.
Got it. Got it. So it still sits in there. Okay. All right. There's a lot of questions around. Well, actually, here's one over here. I understand that retrogression only applies for 485 and not for 526. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Retrogression only applies. So it retrogression applies to you being able to get the actual green card,
Right.
right?
So for
Yeah.
your 485 approval. So what I believe that applicant or investor is asking is that, you may still get your 526C approval, but your 485 to get your conditional PR, that is what will get delayed, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Um, and actually, here's a good question. So here's a scenario. I'm filing EB-5 from Canada, but I'm Indian born. What happens if it's not current, and how does it get affected?
You said you're filing from Canada, but you're
Indian
Indian born.
born,
You
so
do
your
not have
passport is
Canadian
Indian.
citizenship.
In this case, let's assume Canadian citizenship and Indian citizenship, dual citizenship, and Indian born, but you're applying for your EB-5 visa and it's not current.
So
retrogression?
you
Because you're
would
not concurrently filing, basically.
right. Well, so I ask if Canadian citizenship or not because that matters, right? So
Yes, it
it
definitely is Canadian citizen.
right. So Canadian citizenship, yes, then you'll be able to rely on the Canadian citizenship. But with the if you weren't a Canadian citizen, you're just filing from the Canada, you know, they're still going to be depending on your country of origin, which would be India, for the backlog numbers, for the visa bulletin numbers.
How does it make a difference that you're a Canadian citizen?
Um, because it's based on your country of origin for the visa bulletin,
Got it. Got it.
the
Okay.
numbers.
Thanks for the clarification. Um, all right, a lot of questions around source of funds. Let's shift the subject to source of funds landscape. Some investors, $800,000 it was a lot of money. So some investors have to take loans against property in India, from or from wherever, whatever country they're from. From a USCIS perspective, is that okay?
So that's a good question. From a USCIS perspective, it is okay. USCIS generally accepts loans against property as a lawful source of funds. Um, the pro I, and as long as that, is properly documented how you would acquire the property, how the loan was acquired, all that stuff. But it is what we've seen, it is nearly impossible from what we've seen to transfer the proceeds from a loan from India based on the property there. I'm not a lawyer in India,
Right.
but
You're
what
probably
we
referring to
have
like the FEMA regulations and how in India
right.
they require, have to take a loan and whatnot. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And what we've seen is that Indian banks are generally refusing to just process those outward wire transfers. And if I were to guess, it would be due to that FEMA or the
Right.
liberalized
But
remittance.
from a U.S. perspective and U.S. immigration or USCIS standpoint, as long as you show your where the source of funds came from, where the path that you own the property, obviously it's not related to the India side. USCIS is okay with it.
That's right.
Okay. Very good. And another topic a lot of people ask about is, use of SDIRA and 401k funds, if it's okay to utilize those towards EB-5. And we'll pause there and then I'll ask a subsequent question after that.
Um, so retirement funds are perfectly legal source for USCIS, provided that you can document your salary to show how they were funded. Um, but accessing your 401k with a current employer is difficult. You generally can't, from what I've seen, withdraw or move funds from your current employer. But you do want to check and see if your plan has an in-service distribution. If you're 59 and a half years or older, sometimes that's an option. You can also look at 401k loans.
Mhm. And my understanding is that again, it's dependent on certain retirement plans, but they offer some that 401ks that do roll over into a 401k. Obviously, withdrawing is an option, but withdrawing you get the tax penalty. But that's dependent on the plan, kind of like what you mentioned, Phil, right?
Yeah, you want to
So
look at the plan.
yeah, but it is a legal source with respect to USCIS that, this is W-2 income. It came from your employer. This is your 401k. If the plan permits rolling it over into an SDIRA, then it's not a problem.
hmm And if I may go back just a second, I think I said that your Canadian citizenship matters. So I was wrong about that. It just crossed my mind that on the visa bulletin, it is actually it's reliant on your country of birth. So just because you have Canadian citizenship, you would not be able to use that instead of your country of birth for the purposes of the visa bulletin and the backlog.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying.
Sorry about that.
Nope, no problem at all. We're going over a lot of stuff here, so I've just throwing a lot of questions to you. So
Yeah.
totally get it. So we're good with the 401k, of course. What about partial funding? Partial funding of EB-5 investments. Is there a certain period of time which it's okay? How does that impact your processing? Is there a certain gap that's allowed? Do you have any recommendations amongst that?
Yeah, I have lots of recommendations. So partial payments, in my mind, I think it varies across from lawyer to lawyer, but in my mind, they're perfectly okay. The IRA says that a qualified immigrant is one who has, quote, invested or is actively in the process of investing. Okay, so in my mind, and I think in the majority of attorneys' minds, that language is saying that partial payments are okay. Now, the problem you run into is the length of time between the payments. Um, USCIS is processing these applications faster and faster for the I-526E. And in some cases, with rural projects in particular, they're going 4, 5, 6 months. Um, and we've seen them even faster. So with some of these projects, what we're seeing is USCIS is seeing a first investment, but not having seen the follow-up investment to complete it so that they're able to approve the form. So 3, maybe even 2 months in, you'll receive a request for evidence saying, "Hey, where's the rest of this money?" And you're going to want to respond to them to show them where the rest of the money is within the time frame that is given to you on that request for evidence. Now, most of the applications, you would have more time, but just know that sometimes you get an overeager USCIS officer who's going to send you a request for evidence saying, "Where's the rest of the money?"
Got it. Got it. Okay. Um, Back to the source of funds question here. Are we able to take unsecured personal loans for an investment purpose on EB-5? Um,
I
does it
wouldn't
have to be
recommend
collateralized? Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it. Generally, I think that USCIS looks unfavorably on personal loans that aren't collateralized, just because it gives you more of a basis for you to be able to pay that back, or if you default, they take your collateral, your collateral, right?
Yeah.
So I think USCIS prefers it to be collateralized. I would not recommend using a personal loan,
So that's where
especially
you got
one
to
that is
find
uncollateralized.
a good uncle or
Yeah,
an
a
aunt like a
gift,
chacha or chachiji or something
yeah,
like
a
that
gift
that
is
that,
great.
that gets you a little gift there and helps you out.
Gifts are great. Yeah, no, gifts are awesome. But if you're marketing it as a loan to USCIS and there's no collateral for it, you're gonna have a harder time.
Okay. What about, in terms of documentation, source of funds, do we have to document, regional center fees? Let's say there's an admin fee, and I think this is a split answer, but I'll ask the whole thing. RC fees, attorney fees, and USCIS fees.
Um, so you don't have to document your the fees you pay the attorney to USCIS. You will pay the filing fees to USCIS for the I-526C, which is $3,675 plus
Yep.
$1,000. Um, you know,
Hmm.
the name of it
Right,
is
right.
yes, you know what I'm talking about. The additional $1,000 fee.
Yeah.
It's the name is slipping
It,
my head for some
it,
reason.
it starts with an I. I'm blanking on it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Integrity.
Integrity
Integrity.
fee.
Thank
Yes,
you.
that's
Yeah,
right.
There you
yeah.
go.
Integrity fee.
And who is the I?
That's right. So those are paid, right,
But,
to
but
to
do you have to show the
USCIS.
source of funds for it? Like when you're showing your pathway. I mean, obviously not for
No.
USCIS, not for the USCIS fees
You
or the
only need to show the
attorney
source of
fees.
funds for the 800,000 or the million five for that investment. That's the only thing you need to show the source of funds for.
Not even the admin fee then?
Not even the admin fee. And some regional centers are will either waive or defer that as well.
Okay. Very good. Here's a scenario somebody has given us, and then we'll get to. Sorry, I know Kevin and Aaron, you're itching to answer some questions, I'm sure. Actually,
I'm enjoying
let's give
watching. This is
let's
great.
give Phil a break here. Actually, let's talk a little bit about. We'll give Phil a quick water break here or something, then come back to him. Um, so, uh, Aaron, in your experience, having done EB-5 for so many years, how often do you see, third party, this is so when evaluating EB-5 type of projects out there, how often do you see third party projections, that are coming by JLL or HVS, which are the, two most common ones, actually come to fruition?
Well, I think if you're talking about a JLL or HBS report, you're talking about real estate, which is a fairly mature marketplace that has good comps in terms of being able to predict how the asset will perform based on demand drivers like the population, where it's located, et cetera. So I think in commercial real estate, there's good comps, there's good understanding of what drives revenue for those business models, whether it be hospitality or retail or commercial. So I think typically, they're reliable resources to help verify operational projections. And really, USCIS looks at those reports to be third-party reports to support the operational jobs that are tied to the EB-5 investment. So when you have an EB-5 project, you get job creation from construction activity, and then you get EB-5 job creation from operations. Many investors prefer to rely on construction activity because, if you ask me the question of how often does a project go under budget, I'd say not very often. Usually it goes over budget, so you're going to rely on those construction activities. And then to ultimately answer your question, if you're relying on operational pro forma, I think a strong nationwide third-party report from a JLL or a HVS is significant and substantial and should be part of the package.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And Kevin, for you, having been a consultant on so many projects for so many regional centers out there, AIIC included, um, you know, from an investor's perspective, how can you identify risks or red flags in EB-5 projects? What should we be looking for, as an investor?
Yeah, there's a variety of things here, right? Like, first thing you're looking for is, if you're looking for safety of your money, is what position you're in. If you're in the first position in a project, then your money is going to be a lot safer than if you're in a second or third position, or if you're equity, right? So the farther down the line you go, if the project has a problem and has to be liquidated, the less you're going to recoup. So position matters. I wouldn't say that it's everything, but if you're looking at a second position, you definitely need to understand the debt to project value ratio, right? So if you got 80% debt, it's a little bit more risky than if you have 50% debt. 50% debt is a lot easier to get financed, right? So uh, in a position that sits helps you out a lot. So I think that would be a main thing. And then, always understanding who your developer is. And
Oh, I think we lost him there.
Oh no.
Maybe he'll join us here. Kevin, I understand, is always traveling the globe, so he may be headed to the airport now. But we'll hopefully he'll be able to join us back here. But Aaron, maybe you could take over. And one thing that Kevin was talking about is who the developer is. Presuming that he's talking about what sort of track record they have, what type of backing they have, capital they have, personal guarantees. Um, and one other area, I think he was about to get into his location. So maybe you can talk about, elaborate on those, the location and the developer and, position.
Yeah, I think with any good EB-5 project, there's two things to consider. Is it creating the jobs that's required for the investors to get their green cards? And then are they going to return capital? So, does the project have a strong job buffer? Are they relying, to your question earlier, are they relying on construction jobs? Are they relying on operational jobs? How mature of a business are they investing into? So, a hospitality project or a commercial real estate project has a different risk profile than a startup tech company would, for example. So, you want to make sure you're investing in something that you know the jobs are going to be created. And then, in my view, a reliable, industry that you know can be supported and it's not a speculative investment. Because really it's around creating the jobs and returning the capital, not providing a large return on the capital. If a
Mhm.
project's returning a significant amount of capital and you have an equity position, well, that's good for an investment, but that's not necessarily good for your immigration benefit. So if you're looking to come in as a um, first position or second position or third position, there's risk with all those positions, but you got to look at what is your outcome that you're looking for, return of capital and the jobs being created. And then going back onto the developer, yeah, a developer that's well-heeled, has a strong balance sheet, has a completion guarantee, that has incentive to see the project through, and they can complete the project without the EB-5 investors is a very strong position for the project to be in.
So what you're telling me is basically if you got like $100 million project, you don't want a developer that's worth like 5 million bucks or whatnot.
No, I think you'd want it the other way around.
All right. Um, with respect to the first position, second position, um, some investors think, and I can somewhat see merit to it, at least pose the question, what, and how do you, let's say, a bank is involved and you're second position behind the bank. Kevin was saying, based upon a fire sale or foreclosure or whatnot, that comes in, but the bank is doing a lot of due diligence. What sort of, and they do underwriting. How does that create any strength of a valid project? Does that give you any, extra warm and fuzzy feeling, Kevin, or I
So
see that you're back here.
yeah, yeah, sorry about that. No, I would say that, hey, I mean, there's some merit to that, right? Like if you have a large institution that's underwritten the project, then yeah, they've done some work on that. But ultimately, the banks are generally relying on the same people that we are when we're making our determinations, which are like your JLLs or your HVSs and so forth. The banks are hiring the same feasibility companies as EB-5 companies to provide that reporting and to give them and verify their financial projections and cost estimates. And so from that, you know, that I can see where there's merit in large institutions giving you comfort, but ultimately everyone is relying on the feasibility companies. So I think their reporting and understanding the numbers behind those reports is pretty important.
Got it. Got it. Very good. We have some more immigration questions here. And so I'm going to bounce back to Phil. But first, before getting to that, there's a lot of talk about Trump's gold card. His face is all over the picture of the card itself. Lots of discussion around it. So the question is, if ultra high net worth individuals take it, and they do get assigned, and of course it's quite inexpensive. My understanding is you don't get your capital back, and it's a little bit unclear still as to what all the rules are. I've read certain things about spouses would have to pay an extra $1 million, and I mean there's all kinds of things out there and crazy fees. But let's assume you got some ultra rich people out there who are willing to do it and they do get assigned an EB-1 or EB-2 category. How does that impact EB-5 timelines?
Great question. If I could just jump back real quick to you had asked me about the admin fee and source of funds. I wanted to correct myself. The admin fee you do need to show a basic sort of source of funds for. It needs to not be from an illegal source. Okay, it doesn't have to be the same rigorous payment by payment, salary by salary deposit on the as the $800,000 investment. But if you show no source of funds for that, you're probably going to get a nuisance RFE. So it does need to be from a lawful source still.
Got it.
Um,
Unless the regional center, I mean, there is no source. I mean, if
unless
there
it's
is no
deferred
admin
or
fee,
waived or
it's
something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Um, for the gold card, I always recommend EB-5 over the gold card. I've been getting tons and tons of emails and phone calls about it. It's going to start, at least hypothetically, tomorrow, right? So the interesting thing about the gold card is that it doesn't have its own visa quota. Gold cards are going to have this fast track for adjudication, which is presumably what's attractive about it, but not for visa availability. It's still going to be drawn, as you said, from the EB-1, EB-2 categories. Um, this is not going to be helpful for folks, especially from India and China, for those nationals, because the EB-1, EB-2 categories, EB-3 categories are all backlogged significantly. Even with some movement in the EB-1 category. We don't really know right now how the Trump administration is going to differentiate between which gold card individuals are getting EB-1 and which ones are getting EB-2. We know that you can check a box on the form, but we don't really know what that means yet. And we also don't know how they're going to be tracking source of funds at all. We imagine that they're not just going to be taking the money, wherever it's from, with no background check. But yeah,
My
I guess
mind
you
goes
never
all over the
know.
place of who's going to be investing in the gold card without any tracking. So I'll leave
Yeah,
that.
it seems implausible that that is what will happen. But I guess you never do know, and we will have more information as the days go by. The anticipated influx of gold card applicants may make EB-5 more attractive for Chinese and Indian investors. Traditionally, you have the EB-1 category, and if you're not looking at, country caps, the unused visas roll down to the lower categories, right? So if thousands of people are all of a sudden applying for this gold card, hypothetically, you could see that spillover disappear and backlogs could accumulate. But the EB-5 doesn't draw from that same group, right? So it could ultimately make the EB-5, I think, more attractive in that sense.
Got it. Got it. Okay, that makes sense. There's a couple more scenarios that people have posed out there, uh, specific kind of ones with regards to retrogression. So I filed before January 31st. The dates retrogress in February when the bulletin comes out. Technically, they would get the EAD and AP. Um, they're saying and the 526C approval. I guess that depends on the priority date, but and I 526C approval. But I would have to wait for conditional green card based on priority date. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So the 526E is going to get approved no matter what. They're not just going to not adjudicate it, right? Um, but if you filed it concurrently with the I-485, you're just going to be sitting,
Okay.
right? And you're not going to be getting that green card until your priority date's current.
And applying with same scenario with partial funds, does that make any difference in that scenario? Because I guess in that stage, maybe the 526C approval.
It shouldn't, just based on the same language that I said earlier, and that the only thing that's required that you're actively in the process of investing. Now, I guess it could make a difference if you ultimately do not make that second payment because it all of a sudden has retrogress, which I'm not sure why you would do that. But in that case, I guess it would make a difference, but it shouldn't with just a partial payment.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, another scenario here. I'm on my H-1B visa with my I-140 approved while filing for my EB-5. And I changed my status to EAD and start working since the new rule only gives 18 months. Basically, the new rule that's extension of 18 months, I believe, is what
It went
he or
went
she
down
is
from
talking
five
about.
years to 18 months.
Yeah, five
Brilliant,
months. Yeah.
brilliant
If
policy move by our administration.
if for whatever reason the EAD renewal gets delayed beyond the 18 months, can I go back on my H-1B to work? Or, I think you can actually continue working if you're pending your EAD approval, I
Yeah.
believe is the answer. But
You can
do I,
maintain your
yeah,
status on H-1B while you also have an I-485 pending. And that's what we recommend you do, actually. If you have an underlying status, we recommend that you keep that underlying status because what happens if you haven't, if you abandon your H-1B and all of a sudden the I-485 just gets denied, right? You're done. You have to leave. But if you have that H-1B to fall back on, then you will be able to continue using that. Now, if you have filed the I-485 and the EAD and you're like, oh, I can just work on this, I'm not going to pursue or keep myself on the H-1B anymore, and you've abandoned that, or you let it expire or whatever, then you're out of luck.
then you're out of luck. Yeah, no, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Back to the Canadian system, just real quick, because we had some clarification on that. So it's a Canadian citizen, Indian born, a
It's based
scenario
on
and
birth.
such. Is it advisable, let's say he or she is, looks like a he's interested in applying for EB-5. He's got the option of first doing an E2 slash TN visa first and then move to the US where he can file concurrently. Or would you just file directly EB-5 from Canada? I mean, maybe that's talking about like, which one outweighs the other one? What are the benefits of filing concurrently? I think is the overall question in there as well. But yeah,
Yeah, I think that being in the United States to file is better because, if it does retrogress, then you'll be able to stay on that pending I-485. Um, Other than that, if that's not something you're really worried about, then I don't think it really matters where you file it from. But if you want to be in the United States working and stuff like that, then that's what I would do. Now, the other thing you need to, if you're coming on an E, right, the other thing you need to worry about is immigrant intent, right? E visas aren't made for that. You need to have like an H-1B or an L or something like that that has dual intent. So you need to be very careful if you're coming on an E and immediately filing an EB-5.
got it, got it. So it kind of depends on each person's unique scenario and
I would say talk to
yeah,
an immigration attorney.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have your email and number over here, and of course, uh, I'm sure we'll share that along.
Great.
Here's a good question, actually. In the scenario of retrogression, at this point, since it is not there, is it safer to pick an infrastructure project versus a rural? Obviously, let me maybe elaborate for that individual. Obviously, if retrogression has hit, then that's per category, and if it hasn't hit infra, then obviously it's safer to go into infra. But I think the question he or she is asking, is it safer right now to go for an infrastructure project, even though it had, in the anticipation of retrogression, I guess maybe is the question that they're asking.
Right now, I mean, if you hire, an immigration attorney to do an EB-5, you can get it all done pretty quickly. So as long as you fi have filed, I don't really think it matters. If you're looking to file, months from now, an infrastructure is obviously going to be a better option. But right now, I don't see a major difference in it needing to be rural versus high unemployment or infrastructure.
Yeah, no, I know that's coming because I know at AISC we're geared up to launch. It's not yet public, but we will have a infrastructure project out there when that time does come.
Oh,
So I guess
investors will love that. That's great.
at
That's
that
awesome.
stage it will become super important. It's a great project, but right now rural projects or make sense as they all are current as we saw on the bulletin board, of course. Um, Very good. I think that probably answers, typically we go from 45 minutes to an hour. Looks like we got most of the questions answered as well. Um, Kevin, Aaron, Kevin, did we lose him again? Looks so. All right. Um, yeah, I guess maybe we'll wait here a minute. We still have a couple minutes. We'll wait here a minute if actually, as a source of funds, can we take cash advance from a credit card? Does that count as a legitimate source of funds?
A cash
So they're taking a
advance
loan advance.
from a
You must
credit
have a
card.
lot of credit history. I would think that individual, because a cash advance is going to be a super high interest rate, and you're talking significant dollars. But I guess is it a legal source?
It sounds a lot like a personal loan without collateral, or right? Because what is the collateral in this sense when you're getting a cash advance from a credit card? Um, the loanee, the credit card, wouldn't be able to um, back it up against anything, right? Their only option would be to take you to court, right? If you were to default on that. I don't think it's a great way to move forward with the source of funds from a source of funds perspective.
Uh, um, let's see if any more questions come up here. No, I think we got most of them answered. So on that note, again, I appreciate Phil you taking out time during your busy schedule, and likewise Aaron, and tell your partner Kevin as well. He's obviously traveling somewhere and out of connection, but yeah, um, we appreciate everyone's time here today for joining us, and hopefully you find these useful. We have these quite frequently. We do keep the recordings, post webinar. They are on our website. That's AIICEB5.com, AIICEB5.com, and there's a webinar link over there that we've done several over the past couple months here on different topics and different education seminars surrounding EB-5 and gold card and platinum card and source of funds and all different types of things. So feel free to reach out. Phil, if your email, I believe, is pkuck@wrimmigration.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Or well, it's at wolfsdorf.com,
At
but
Wolf's, at wolfsdorf.com. So
that's right.
P for Phil, and then Kuck, Kuck, at wolfsdorf.com. And again, if anyone's interested in any F-approved, rural projects or infrastructure projects, or just in general EB-5 advice, they can reach out to me at Vikram. That's Vikram, Vikram at AIICEB5.com, Vikram at AIICEB5.com. And again, thank you all for attending, and have a good night.
Thanks.
Take care.